Hey, welcome back to the channel, my fellow weather junkies. I'm your host, meteorologist Greg Majeski, your trusted weather source here, bringing you the weather without all that social media hype here on your Monday, June 2nd, 2025. Now, before we get going, first, we always like to say thank you and welcome aboard any new subscribers here on the channel. And if you're not yet a subscriber, please help us get closer to our 10,000 goal. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you're alerted on future content. And if you appreciate this report, please leave me a comment down below, give me a thumbs up. It does help with that almighty YouTube algorithm. Well, Sunday officially kicked off the 2025 hurricane season, and here are the names right here, as we're going to start off with Andrea, and we're going to go all the way through to Wendy. So looks like we're in store for a season that's going to be running a bit above average, and there are some indications that perhaps we'll get an early storm as we go into June. For right now, though, the National Hurricane Center is not showing us anything expected over the next 7 days, but just beyond the 7-day, there is something that keeps hinting there. The American GFS model has been kind of hitting on this for the last several days. Now, it has backed off the intensity, so it's a little more reasonable for what I'm expecting if we get anything to develop, more indicative of a potential tropical storm, and it's making its way heading up into the Texas Gulf Coast. So looks like this is going into next weekend. We start getting something to develop down here, getting into portions of the Western Caribbean, kind of comes across the Yucatan and then makes a beeline up this way. Now, keep in mind, this is still beyond the 7-day window, and it's likely to change a little bit. In fact, the European model is still not showing anything at all, but it's just an indication that, hey, we're in hurricane season. We do have above normal water temperatures out in the Gulf of Mexico, and we could potentially see a storm in June. Not unheard of, although it is usually the quieter time of the season. As you go and look at by the month, again, we're looking at the Gulf of Mexico. That is where we typically like to see, or we typically see development. So it's not unusual to see something develop into that area. Right now, looking at the satellite imagery across the Atlantic, looking pretty quiet out there. Got some showers and thunderstorms out here to the east of the Bahamas, but otherwise, it really not looking too bad out here for your June start. All right, the other part of our weather news story out there, boy, it's got to be those wildfires. We're still getting them blowing quite heavily there across Canada, and all that smoke has been spilling into the United States. It did obscure some of the aurora views over the weekend, although the auroras did not go quite as far south as what was anticipated overnight, partly because the storm came in a little quicker. If you think forecasting weather is bad, forecasting space weather is even worse. So that flow continues right now. In fact, looking at the current model here run, looks like you folks air into the Northeast, you're probably going to see some of this smoke coming your way. You see this kind of shifting down this way. And we still have the smoke here across the southeast as well. So we're going to be dealing with some hazy skies as that northwest flow continues, although it is beginning to shift a little bit here. Now, as we look at our latest satellite imagery, we can see some of this as we got the sun coming up here for this morning. You can kind of see that brown hue that's kind of coming through here. So you can see that smoke showing up very nicely there. And like we said, you folks in the Northeast, got it coming your way. So get ready for those hazy skies to come your way as well. Looking at our service map out here for today, we're going to be watching for severe weather out in the middle of the country as we've got some energy that's kind of coming up out of the southwest. We've got some rains up from an upper level low as well as whatever was left of the moisture from Alvin out of the Pacific kind of working its way northward. Also got a little disturbance here across the high plains moving on in. So we're going to have a textbook battle of the air masses kind of duking it out here. And we're going to see a couple days of some severe weather we have to watch as we go through today, Tuesday, and Wednesday. The next 3 days, we'll be doing that right now. Let's go look at your watches and warnings. Pretty quiet out there right now. Still got maybe a few flash flood watches here across northern New Mexico, but really looking pretty quiet across most of the nation here on your Monday. Looking at the radar, speaking of rain, I mean, here's something you don't typically see very often. How about some decent rains there north of Phoenix? You know, you're normally getting to this time of year, Phoenix is baking in the heat and limited rain. We really don't get that until we get toward monsoon season a little bit later in the summer. So to see rain here falling in June, yeah, a little unusual to see that, that's for sure. All right, let's go ahead and talk about what we're going to see from the Storm Prediction Center folks here for today as we're going to be looking at the next 3 days here. So let's go ahead and look at that right now. This is your day one outlook here for your Monday. We have a pretty sizable slight risk here coming from Minnesota back toward Nebraska, down toward Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, kind of getting in here. So we'll watch that closely here for today. I was anticipating maybe the possibility of this going up to an enhanced either today or tomorrow. Looks like that not quite as gung-ho as what some of the models were showing last week. Let's go ahead and break down the categorical breakdown here for today. We'll start off with the tornado risk here, running pretty limited here for Nebraska, going in for a 2% chance of seeing a few tornadoes in here. So we're talking Sioux Falls, Sioux City, over toward North Platte, Grand Island. This area in here could see an isolated tornado or two, but again, nothing that's going to be too robust out there expected for today. How about the wind damage? Well, that's going to be a little bit bigger, obviously. That slight risk there, running about 15%. There from just to the west of Minneapolis, stretching all the way down toward Amarillo. So that zone right there for your wind threat. And the hail threat, that'll pretty much be in the same general locations. Do have some hail and wind threat down here in Florida as well. Don't want to forget our friends down there as they're dealing with some stuff as well. So again, a little bit of a wind threat down there with a few isolated severe weather down into Florida, but most of it will be here into the middle of the country. How about our day 2 outlook? Let's go and take a look at that. That kind of shifts off toward the east here, kind of stretching from areas near Madison, Wisconsin, going back over toward Burlington and heading into Jefferson City. Kansas City's in this, obviously going down toward Oklahoma City and getting just into the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So we're going to have to watch that zone here going in toward tomorrow, going into your Tuesday. Of course, got the marginal risk almost from Mexico all the way to the Canadian border. That's a very large area there. We'll look at the categorical breakdown on this one very quickly, as we still look like a 2% risk here. Nothing very high from Madison back toward Wichita Falls, running about 2%. The wind threat, obviously, will be running higher in that same corridor where that slight risk is. And the hail threat, looking at that, that looks like predominantly down here toward the south. And boy, they've seen a lot of hail in Texas this year. Looking at areas there across North Texas, up toward Oklahoma City, and kind of sneaking in toward areas of southern Kansas as well. What about our day 3 outlook? Let's look at that. Get a little bit closer here. Whoops, sorry about that. Get a little closer. And we'll look at our day 3 here. Again, just a couple of marginal pockets here up near Detroit, stretching back toward Indiana and into Illinois. So got that zone right there. And a little pocket out here into areas of Colorado, New Mexico, and maybe sneaking in a little bit of the Texas Panhandle as well. So it looks like things begin to settle down a little bit later here in the week. Now, with those areas of thunderstorms, obviously you're going to watch about where the excessive rainfall is going to fall, where you might see some isolated flooding. And so we're going to take a look at the next 5 days here across the country. Obviously, those yellow areas are where your slight risk is. You got to have that moisture that's kind of coming on out here of the Rockies. So again, you're looking at some of that moisture coming up this way, and you got this little pocket there for today, that slight risk for some flooding. Let's look at your day 2 outlook here. That kind of shifts out into the plains. Again, that's where that severe weather is kind of lining up here going into your Tuesday. Obviously, talking about Iowa stretching back in here toward Texas. Seeing that for tomorrow going into Tuesday. Wednesday, well, looks like more of just a marginal chance there across the middle of the country. Kind of shifting back over toward the Four Corners and even down to along the southeastern coast there. And going into your Friday, going toward the end of the week here. Going in toward, looks like Thursday, I should say. This is Thursday, day 4. You see there across portions of Oklahoma and Texas. And then finally, day 5 kind of sits in the same general zone. So it looks like a fairly wet and rainy week, especially across the middle of the country. And we'll show you those rainfall totals here in just a second. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the models. Let's get ready to take a look at this. We're going to first take a look at the NAM. We're going to be looking at the North American model here for over the next 60 hours here, next 2.5 days, kind of take you through the short-term forecast here. So it looks like you can see we got the unsettled weather across Florida. We got a little upper level disturbance down there. Of course, we got the system that's going to be crossing the country. Let me go ahead and pause this real quick. So again, we got this energy here coming out of the areas of the southwest here, kind of kicking up this way. We got this energy kicking off this way. So that's going to be tagging up to give us that severe weather outbreak here as we're anticipating going in through today. So this thing goes into this afternoon. See those thunderstorms really start to erupt here as we go to the evening hours here. So we're talking about this area up here from Minnesota stretching back in toward areas of Nebraska. So that zone right there, pretty good sharp dividing line there. I'm going to show you the temperatures. You'll see what I'm talking about there. And again, this kind of moves off toward the east where those storms seeking on the south. Looks like a little bit of a bubble here of some storms here across portions of Iowa. But again, you kind of see the thunderstorms through there. See the wet weather down in Florida as well. Northeast finally getting to dry out. Not only is Northeast going to dry out, they're going to finally warm up. Well, they were very cool over the weekend, and they're going to see temperatures well into the 80s here by the end of the week as this system begins to push off toward the east. It's a pretty good line of storms there going late in the day on Tuesday. So this is your severe weather looking out toward tomorrow. This will be your kind of area right in there. And again, what looked like a little more robust tornado outlook last week does not look as promising for today. So I don't know how many chasers will be out heading into tomorrow on Wednesday. This moves off toward the east there. And again, that unsettled weather there across Florida continues that upper level disturbance, increasing the moisture here across areas of the Florida Panhandle here. Again, you got that frontal system moving in here, little cluster storms back over toward South Dakota, I should say, in Nebraska, and you still got some wet weather out here in Arizona as well. So again, looking a little unsettled across the country, especially with that big storm system moving out there in the middle of the country. So let's talk about the rainfall totals here. This is basically taking you out until 2 o'clock Wednesday afternoon. So you can kind of see the middle of the country. That's where most of the activity here is going to be forward through Texas and back through areas of Minnesota. So wherever those thunderstorm complexes set up, that's what the heavier rain is going to be. Generally dry out here in the east and dry out here in the west, but that's what it looks like here over the next 2.5 days. All right, let's look at the general temperature threat here over the next few days here, next 72 hours, next 3 days. So we're definitely, when you're looking at this map, you're looking for those purples and the real dark rays. You're looking for where the hot weather is going to be. One thing that's showing up pretty nicely here this afternoon is the fact that we do have a pretty pronounced cold front up in here as that cold air is coming in. You get the warm air kind of surging out ahead of it. Temperatures well into the upper 80s there into areas of Minnesota and get into Nebraska. So we get the fuel to inject those thunderstorms with some energy there. Pretty hot here across Texas. I mean, you're seeing temperatures right there, 99 degrees there. The California and the Southwest definitely cooled off a bit. They were very hot over the weekend. That has improved. Going in toward tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock, definitely see a nice cold front showing up very nicely through there. You see the greens here, and the temperatures in our 40s and 50s. Very warm out ahead of it. We got temperatures into the upper 60s, 70s there into Iowa. Still holding on to some cool air across areas of New England. Pretty warm and down here across the south. Temperatures here in the 70s, which is typical. You know, we're in June. So let's go ahead and take this into your high temperatures on Tuesday. And you can see that definitely seeing the temperatures still holding hot into Texas. That frontal system cooling things down here in the middle of the country. And marginally hot across the Southwest. Definitely warmer up here into areas of Michigan. You're seeing 84 right there. Temperatures back in the 70s into New England. That's going to get even warmer here in the days ahead. I can't believe they had temperatures there in the 40s over the weekend. It's unreal how cool it was. Going into your Wednesday morning here, let's go look at your Wednesday morning again. You see that frontal system here cutting through the middle of the country. Pretty warm here now, getting into the middle to upper 60s here into areas of New England for morning lows. So again, a big about face from that cool temperatures you have on the weekend. Pretty cool out here in the west. Look at all the green here. Even some 30s up into the mountains, but generally sitting in the 40s and 50s out here. Very warm into the 60s and 70s out ahead of that front. And then finally looking at your afternoon highs here on your Wednesday. Again, pretty warm up here in New England. I see 85, 82. There's 82 there, 84. I see there. Again, you got mid-80s here across portions of Ohio as well. So again, you got the warm air surging ahead of us. There's our cold front right there, and really kind of beating back the heat. So it doesn't look like overly aggressively hot. At least we don't have any little heat waves kind of strapping up there across the country. All right, so let's go and talk about the overall weather pattern here. Now, this is kind of the 500 millibar anomaly. When you look at the blues, you're looking at your storm systems, your lower pressure. Your oranges there are indicative of your higher pressures here. And what I'm seeing is kind of a traditional look here as far as the storm systems. You're starting to get this thing where the jet stream, the flow is up here toward the north. Looks like the south here is going to stay pretty much on the dry side for the most part, except for those afternoon thunderstorms and stuff. So we'll get these little weak disturbances that are kind of right between those boundaries there, and they'll shift and they'll oscillate from day to day. One thing about when you start getting into late spring and summer, those little weaknesses, they really change from day to day. So expect that to impact, like, for example, where your severe weather may set up for a specific day. That's going to change here. But it looks like not over-the-top weather conditions here across the country. Little disturbances keep riding in out of the northwest and kind of riding across the northern tier of the United States. And, of course, that is typically where the severe weather begins to shift as we go through the month of June. All right, so let's go and look at your forecast here as we kind of back this up here. We're going to take you through here for the week ahead here. So we're looking at Wednesday. Again, we talked about the first 2 days. This will be moving off toward the east. What I'm seeing here for this week is a lot of these little weak disturbances that'll continue to be tracked here throughout the week. For example, you're seeing this here on Friday across areas of Missouri and to Illinois. So you got this little upper level low here across the southeast. Southeast looks like it's going to be a little unsettled going into this weekend, as it looks like we got a couple of clusters of rains here, for example, going into Saturday. Seeing some storms there across Alabama and Georgia. A little unsettled up here into New England as well going into this upcoming Saturday. Some storms there across Oklahoma. And so it looks like that'll continue to stay unsettled there. Let's go into your Sunday afternoon. Still seeing the rains here across the southeast. Seeing some storms up here over that little disturbance there right across the Canadian border, across Wisconsin, Minnesota. West looks pretty dry. Northeast looks pretty good. And then finally going into your Monday next week. Again, a little unsettled here across the Carolinas. Looking at some storms across Louisiana. And again, looks like a bit of a cold front here coming on through here just with this system here. You can see a little bit cool down there across areas of the Great Lakes. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the big picture here. Let's look at the rainfall totals here. Again, it looks like most of the rainfall here is going to be setting up in the middle of the country here over the next week or so. So it looks like this storm threat here will be predominantly here in the middle of the country. That's what will stay the wettest. A bit dry out toward the west. New England will be a little bit wet as well. Southeast not looking too bad. Looks like the wet weather is predominantly down in toward Florida, where they definitely need it. They've been in drought conditions for a lot of the winter and spring. They're starting to beat back those drought conditions there, but that's what we're looking like here for the next 7 days. Let's look at your climate outlook here as we go ahead and take a look at this. Here's something that's a little unusual here I do want to point out is here for the 6 to 10 day outlook as well as 10 to 14. They keep showing this unusual cool spot here in the middle of the country. So we're pretty warm out here in the west. And around the periphery, we're looking with above normal temperatures around the periphery. Check this out as I take this out going in toward later into the month. Doesn't really change all that much. In fact, it's identical. So now it looks like we're going to continue to see with below normal temperatures in the middle of the country, predominantly because of those active little flow of these storms coming out. I think clouds and rain will be a little bit higher in this zone, and that'll keep it down. Looks like the northwest will stay a bit on the dry side for right now. So looking at your 6 to 10 day outlook here as far as precipitation, you're definitely seeing dry weather out here, a little bit dry there. Wet here across the south and across the areas of the mid-Atlantic, but a big part of the country looking at above normal precipitation here, which is good. We don't have to worry about the drought conditions at least, but areas in the northwest, that stays dry going deeper into the month as we go toward the middle of the month and still staying active here across the southeast with above normal precipitation as well. So anyway, it looks like we're in store for a couple of active days here for severe weather in the middle of the country. You folks in the northeast, you get the smoke that's going to be moving in there for the next couple of days, so watch out for that. And of course, we're going to keep a very watchful eye on the tropics to see if we're going to get our tropical storm or not. Right now, I think the risk is pretty low. Right now, European is not showing anything, and the GFS, which has been consistent, I'll give it that. It's been pretty consistent on its runs. I just don't trust that model overly that much. But again, because of the model consistency that's been there over and over again, I can't ignore it. So I need to show that to you guys and let you know that it's something just to watch, and we'll see how it looks as we get a little bit closer to it. Again, once we get inside the 7-day window, then we'll get a better idea on how these tropical systems, how they develop and where they may end up heading to go. All right, again, that's y'all's update for today. I appreciate you guys checking out the channel. If you have not yet subscribed to us, please help us get to that 10,000 mark. Can't do it without your help, so please hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you're alerted on when I do these updates. We occasionally do some live updates as well. And if you have any weather-related questions, please leave a comment down below. I'm more than happy to answer your weather questions. All right, that's y'all's update here for your Monday. You guys take it easy, be good, stay safe, and we'll see you on the next update. Till then, y'all have a great day. Bye-bye.